When you hear the word budget, what does it make you do? Does it make you go, ooh? Does it make you think this is a restriction, a straitjacket? Do you want to poke your eyes out with a pencil? Or do you actually embrace that and see that as a very, very positive thing to add in your life? Folks, welcome to another weekly broadcast on I Hate Numbers. My name is Mahmood. I'm an accountant, educator, and mentor. Been doing that for over 40 years here. And in today's broadcast, I want to talk to you about personal budgeting. We're going to be talking about business budgeting in a show next week, but about personal budgeting and why it's such an incredible, powerful thing that you need to have in your life. We've got lots of turbulence going on around us in terms of pressure on our household costs. Some of those are going to be affecting us in various different ways here. But a budget is not just about cutting down, it's not about restricting, but it's a very liberating mechanism. It's about creating and writing your financial story so you can lessen your anxiety, have more certainty about the future, be in control, and actually live the life that you set your goals for. So that's what we're going to cover in today's broadcast. It's very practical, so I'm going to be talking to you about the why and expanding on that, why you need to do that. I'm going to talk about how you get your hands dirty as such, and you do not need to be a mathematician. You do not need to be clued up on numbers in order to do that. I'm going to show you some tips, and I'm also going to have a tool that I can make available for you to actually make that process much easier. Before we do that, let's crack on with some heart-pumping music. What a great way to get the blood circulating here. I mean, weather's been a bit rubbish, hasn't it, this week here? From short wearing and sunglasses and perhaps sun factor 38 or whatever, it's going to be quite chilly, certainly in the UK. If you're joining us from overseas or somewhere else in the world, hello to you. Hope you're all keeping well. If you're just coming onto the show at a later time, this is obviously a live broadcast now on Saturday, the 2nd of April. 2022, then put the hashtag replay in there. I know you're out there. Any questions or comments, more than happy to deal with them. So we're talking about the topic of personal financial planning and what I would call writing your financial story. For me, very much, it's a liberating tool here, and it's sad in one respect that a vast proportion of households, certainly in the UK, I think stats and surveys have showed about a sixth do not will do a household budget. Beyond that, not many people will do that itself. We tend to, certainly a lot of people tend to live, on a reactive basis here, of actually sitting down here. Now, I'm going to emphasize why I think it's such an important thing that everybody, whatever your wealth situation, whether you're on the margins, whether you're comfortable, whether you're actually sort of very affluent, you've got lots of cash floating around, which is fantastic. For me, writing your own personal financial story, which we might conventionally call a budget, is really a powerful thing to do here. And the reason it's so powerful is because a lot of us who get anxious about our finances, and a lot of us who get anxious about money, it's because it's the unknown. Not necessarily not going around the corner. We're going through our minds, asking lots of those questions like, can I afford to do X? I've got all the news that's coming around me from energy prices, being astronomical, food prices going up. We've got the impact on the sort of current situation here with oil and gas prices. There's a very much a knock-on effect there. About 25% of all crude oil, by the way, is used for fuels. A lot of it is used for things like pharmaceutical products, in terms of medical products, in terms of products that we take for granted, like the plastics and all the rest of it, asphalt. It permeates everywhere. And therefore, any knock on those utility costs here is going to have a massive impact. So with all that going on here, it's quite easy to get sucked into a situation where you think, this is it. Life is very tough here. How are we going to manage? And to eliminate and get rid of that uncertainty, you've got to be able to, in my opinion, formulate a financial plan. Now, time frame, I would suggest in an ideal universe, you try and sketch out what's going to happen over the next 12 months. If that's too far away for you to think about, and it may not be that bizarre, by the way, to think about in 12 months, you certainly need to look at the next 6 months there. So that's the reasons why it gives more certainty, gives you more clarity, puts you more in control, by the way, and it gives you opportunities to take action now for something that might be coming through the pipeline later on down the track. You do not want to be caught short. You do not want to be caught unawares by these events there as well. Now, you can't necessarily control what's going on, but you can certainly take action. And that's the thing about being positive and being with good affirmation here. You can do things to mitigate the pain itself. My personal life, by the way, probably quite sad because I'm a big numbers guy, is that I've been doing a personal budget for a number of reasons for about, well, pretty much most of my life here. Coming from a background where money wasn't that plentiful, you know, you obviously were conscious of it. So as soon as I became, I suppose at an early age, independent and controlling my own money and finance there, you know, it's really important for me to actually know what I could do with it, what I couldn't do with it, and what I needed to do if I wanted to get to some end goals. So that's the whys, and hopefully I've given you sort of plenty to think about as to the merits of doing one. And again, don't think of it just as an accountant's tool. It's a very practical thing to do. The next thing is, how do we go about it? Well, many of us may not be fully aware about what we're spending money on. I know that sounds really quite bonkers, quite bizarre, but it tends to be true. We don't necessarily know what we're spending money on. We don't necessarily know where the money's coming from. You know, obviously, if you're salaried, if you're working for yourself, you know, if you're retired, whatever you are in your life cycle, how much money you've got to a large extent is going to be quite predictable, but it's the volatility of spending here. And what we try and do is we try and figure it all out in this, the worst office in the world, our heads. What we don't do is to articulate that and actually take a breath and actually figure out what's going on. So the first thing I would do is to think about your lifestyle, and I would not even get bogged down and worry about numbers at this stage, and just think of it in terms of descriptive. Now, from a preference point of view, I like bits of paper where I can scribble and doodle. Makes it much more real, makes it better for me. If you're somebody who likes tech, you don't really do bits of paper and pen, then obviously, you know, get a Word document, a Google Doc, anything here, but you need to dump some thoughts that's going on in here and actually translate that onto a document. Now, if you do remember, we're focusing today on the personal financing here. We are going to be dealing with business budgeting later on, but I think this lays the platform of an approach that's very similar that we take into our own businesses and how we should do that as well. So this financial storytelling, this financial planning is a discipline that for me is critical in your personal life, your family life, your household life, as well as doing that in your business life as well. The two dovetail each other and they're complementary and they interconnect. But let's focus on the mechanics of the personal one. So first thing I would probably do is to think about what's going on in my life. And for me, instead of just writing a great big list of things, think of things in terms of categories, think of things in terms of what I call groups. So if I imagine this situation here, that if you go into a supermarket, you're going shopping, you typically see as you walk through that store, you can see the supermarket is grouped, all its items, you know, in groups. So you'll see a part of the racking, a part of the shelf that will have all fruit and vegetables there. You'll have a part of the shelving, part of the display within the supermarket, that'll be bread, that'll be dairy products, and all those things are grouped, and there are many different items in there. And that sort of framework of reference is what you need to do in your personal life as well. So, for example, if you are somebody who's uses transportation, you know, you think about transportation and you might think, okay, I've got a car, right, that's the heading, that's the group. What are the items? And again, at this stage, I would not worry too much about the figures. Just describe and articulate and write down what the items are. So within a car, you have typical things like the tax, the insurance, the fuel that goes in there, MOT in the UK, repairs, maintenance. Those are the different items that you might have. If you're thinking also about alternative transportation, about when you're going to work, whether it's your office or whether you work for somebody else, then you're talking about, you know, outside of the car, train, car, well, car, we said car, taxi, and the like. Think about your household. And again, you might want to, if you're in a relationship, you might want to discuss this with your partner. And all you're thinking is describing where we think the money goes. That's the easier, more depressing list here, but think of it by groups. So I might say typically like household. Well, for running a household as a box, I've got items such as the rent that's being paid. If it's mortgage, obviously you've got the mortgage payment that's coming out there. You've then got items such as utilities, gas, electricity, or whatever your fuel mechanism is for the property. You might have council tax, local property taxes that you've got on the house as well. And then continue that. And remember, this is not just about the essential spend, it's about your lifestyle as well. So within your lifestyle, you're going to have leisure activities. And within leisure activities, what are those leisure activities for you? Is it like going out? Is it going out to the cinema, going out to the theatre? Is it going to the gym? Put that down. You've got things like self-care, looking after yourself. So whether that could be a trip to the barbers and the hairdressers, as you can see, I often go there. So you've got the hairdressers, you've got the barbers, you've got obviously any beauty treatments that you might go for. And for me, this key thing is, by the way, think about describing where your lifestyle is currently. And you also got to factor in what I call the goal. So this is not just about, let's have a straight jacket and not spend any money here. Think about your life. Think about your own personal goals. Think about what targets you set for yourself and your family here. And when you come to things like, if you have children, then obviously children, you've got things like nursery fees, depending on how old they are, school fees, school trips. There might be private fees if your children go to private school. So put it by bucket, put it by bracket. Things like if you've got pets, you've got insurances, visit to the vets, and all those things that go with that. Now, if you want to drop a comment, by the way, right, let's call it financial story or something, in the comments box here, I've got a tool that I can give to you free. I just need your contact details here, where we can actually put some of this mechanics together. In a few moments here, I'll demonstrate and show you what this mechanism actually is. So we've identified by group where our money is going. We've got things from leisure activities, household, running a vehicle. We've then got where does the money come from? And the money will be depending on what your circumstances are. It will coming in from perhaps any sort of benefits from Social Security, whether it's working tax credit, universal credit, whether it's carer's allowance. You might have money coming in from your salary. And when you look at your salary, if you're working for somebody or your own business, think of it in terms of take-home pay. You're thinking about the money that you're going to be taking out, the money that's coming to you, that's going to land in your bank account. And fundamentally, folks, what we're talking about here is writing out your future cash story. So sources of money. If you're obviously drawing money out of your own business, you've got that. You've got obviously the benefits. You may have family members that are gifting you money there as well. So think about where is the money coming from. Now, once you've got your list, here's the next thing I would do. Go away, grab a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, a glass of gin, whatever your tipple actually is. And then obviously don't drink too much gin or alcohol, by the way, while you do this exercise. Otherwise you might end up with something you don't necessarily want. So having just described our lifestyle, having factored in things as well, by the way, for aspirations like savings goals. So you might have a holiday that you want to go on next year, put that down. Identify things like trips away. There might be some refurbishment going on in your house. You might want to buy new furniture. You may even be looking to move house as well. So whatever your life goals are short term, typically within the next year, make sure you articulate them, make sure you write them down. Don't leave anything out, and I'll explain why in a few moments. Having done that, then go down your list of items, grouped accordingly, and under the groups you've got the specific items that you can think of. And it's always that balance between not having too many, so it becomes a massive long list, and thinking, okay, let's be material about this. I'm not worried about things that might be a couple of quid here or there. If I don't actually know the exact number, doesn't matter, but I want to make sure I factored in pretty much what's going on in my life now and what's going to be going on in my life going forward in terms of what I'm wishing for and how me and my family partners are actually conducting our lives. Now, once we've done that, once we've identified that listing, we then go down by the listing And then we just think to ourselves, okay, these items, are they regular? So typically something like household rent or mortgage will be a regular monthly amount. As we come down, things like local property taxes, council tax, again, that could be something that you're paying regularly. Again, you're writing that regularly. And in the UK, certainly for most rating authorities here, council tax typically is paid over a 10-month period within a calendar year. And we come down things, so we've thought about our household. We've got things like water rates. Again, depending on your household, water rates might be paid twice a year. So that's, for me, it's not a regular amount, it's an ad hoc amount. And just make a comment, it's paid twice a year. Now, if you don't know this, put a question mark there. And that's the research that you need to do. Next, I'm going to talk to you about how do you actually quantify, where do you actually get this information from. So what we're doing is identifying where the money is going by groups and by items within those groups. We're identifying the regularity of that spend. You know, whether it's regular for me is like every week, brackets every month. Ad hoc is effectively, you know, a few times during the course of the year. It doesn't occur every single month. It occurs either as a one-off or maybe a few times in the year, but not repeatedly itself. Car tax, likewise, that's going to be an irregular amount. It's typically going to be paid, depending how you want to pay it, once a year, twice a year. Insurance, likewise, you might pay the premium as a one-off, or you might decide you want to pay it monthly. Again, if you don't know, you need to actually just take an educated guess, write it down, and there will be gaps. Not that many people will actually, with perfect clarity, understand completely by doing that, have a perfect recall of what's going on in their finances. I will share a little confession with you. For my clients, obviously I know exactly what's going on with their financial affairs. When it comes to my own financial affairs, I always have to check what I'm spending money on as well. So that I do take my own advice, but I don't necessarily have perfect recall of what I'm spending in my personal life and where the money goes and where it's coming from there as well. Obviously, I'm on top of it, but you know, don't expect to have that perfect memory recall. So what do we do next? So again, take a breath. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't do everything straight away. Give yourself a bit of clarity. Give yourself a bit of time. Start the exercise. If it feels quite painful, always remember the outcome of what you're trying to achieve here. The ultimate aim is it will put you in a much stronger position. It'll put you in a much stronger position to take decisions. It'll give you much more certainty and clarity. And what a lot of people I find that I help write when they write their own personal or business financial stories is it amazing that aha moment. And it gives them such clarity. And they say, actually, the situation is not as bad as I'm expecting, because I can see perhaps challenging times at certain times of the year. But if I can do this and I can do that and I can do the other, then actually I can navigate the path, and actually it's going to be quite positive there. So actually, therefore, I feel a little bit more calmer. I've got a little bit more certainty. Just as much when you're planning for a holiday, you're figuring out what you need to take, what you need to do, the route there. That gives you a bit more certainty and a bit more comfort in terms of that future episode. And the same applies to your personal finances. Don't put your head under the duvet. Don't abrogate your responsibilities to look after yourself and your family financially, and grab it by the scruff and, you know, take charge of it. Now, we then need to know the numbers. And again, this is where you want to gather together things like your personal bank statements. This is where you want to gather together your personal credit cards here. And all you're doing now is quantifying, converting into money's amount, what these items are. So council tax, depending how you pay that, that should be coming out of your personal bank account, or coming out of a bank account of some description. So go through and just jot down by the side of the item, the regularity, the amount of money involved. If you've got a council tax letter telling you what the council tax is going to be for the next year, fantastic. Use that as a reference point. That will give you the amount, but it'll also tell you when it's to be paid. Now, as you do that, as you're compiling your listing here, my personal view is I would not over worry. Do not get too anal like some old accountants do and worry too much about the pennies. Round it up to the nearest pound, the nearest £5, because you're just getting a feel for what is likely to happen. And if we look any point into the future, we know the moment we complete our personal financial story, it's going to be mathematically incorrect. We know it's going to be wrong, but it still gives us a good idea of what's going on. And I'm going to talk to you, by the way, when we've done all this exercise, what do we do with the document that we produced? So jot them down. Now, I find that a lot of people who go through this exercise, they may be quite disconnected from the bank accounts. They may not actually look closely at their credit cards here, and it's quite insightful and it's quite revealing. It will tell you what's going on. Once you see the numbers coming out, you may have that aha moment. You might think, oh, actually, I didn't realize I was spending those things, and those little small subscriptions that are going through. We're not doing cut and burn at this stage here. Put them down. Once we've done that, we then need to actually put them into some form of tool, some form of calculation. And for me, you've got a few options here. I'm going to share one with you, which again, I'm happy to share with folks, by the way, if you want to let me know if you want to copy. And I'm just going to share my screen and the power of magic. So as the good old Blue Peter presenters would say, here's what I presented earlier. So as we can see, what I've got there, I've gone down my listing there, and I can see, as you can see, my groups, my items there, and I've got the items listed, all the things there, as so. Now, what I will then do is, once I've assembled that, is just then to tap the data into there. So if I've got a mortgage, I don't know, for argument's sake, I put 450 in there. Obviously, if you've got a mortgage, it's unlikely you can have a rent as well. Putting all the items here. So it goes down. Just keep populating it. And what will happen is it will just collate how much you're spending. A little nice naughty message here saying monthly, you're spending more than you're earning. We haven't obviously put any income in there. Wages and salaries, £1,000. You get the picture there as well. So that's going to tell me over a month and then over a year what that picture looks like in terms of my surplus or deficit accordingly. Now, there's two more things I think I want to introduce at this stage here. So we've talked about identifying what's going on. We've talked about quantifying that. We've talked about doing the calculation, see what's going on as well. And the next two things is once you've done that document, is then do not do any pruning. So make sure that budget reflects your personal lifestyle, your goals. Now, if you find that things are becoming quite challenging, then you do what I call challenge the cost. So look at the items that you've got there. Now, some items by nature, there's very little wiggle room that you've got in them. So like your mortgage is your mortgage. Obviously, there are always options to look to refinance, remortgage, look for a different broker. Mortgage rates are obviously under a bit of pressure at the moment. Interest rates are moving up. So that's always an option for you. Always do a cost benefit though. What's the cost of doing that change? What's the benefit I'm going to get from that? Don't rush into the decisions. All you're doing is exploring options and challenging. Are there items in there that you can challenge and say, are there ways, do I actually need that? Does it add value to my life, personal life? Does it give me that degree of enjoyment? And it does. Then for me, there's a strong argument for keeping it in there. Life is not just about saving money. Life is not just about living on the margins if we can avoid it. But life is about you're working. If you've got the opportunity to do so, you need to enjoy the money, but you need to be in control of that as well. Now, if you're thinking actually that expenditure that's going out there, does it actually do anything to enhance my life? Does it have anything to enjoyment, make my life easier? If the answer is no, and your partner can't justify that, then that's a question about eliminating it. That might not seem big numbers. You might think it's only about 10, 20 quid a month. But what you've got to look at is what's called the cumulative effect. Little things here that you tweak, little things that you tighten up there as well, over the course of a year can compound to be quite a significant sum of money. So if you're able to identify opportunities to reduce costs without impacting negatively too much in your life, then what will happen is, let's say it's a couple of £100 a year, that would be equivalent, if you're working, to earning £300 salary, to give you that figure there as well. If you've got your own business, think about the money you need to earn in your business to give yourself a take home of £200. Those little things will accumulate and build up. Other things, you can look for alternatives of ways of reducing alternative suppliers. I know that sounds quite a weird thing in your finances. Shop around, but read the small print. But for me, it's going to give you a great amount of insight. Now, that exercise first time round is great. You've done that. You've got some idea what your personal budget is going to look like. You've got some idea about where your money is going. Remember building in things like those long-term goals as well, such as like saving for, doing up your house, going on holiday, enjoyment. You need to build that dimension in there, because what tends to happen in motivational terms is that if your life, if you have that opportunity to influence it, becomes very tight and restricted, and it is literally living that subsistence. And I've been there before, so I know it's not a very nice situation at all. If you've got the opportunity to move outside of that, then obviously, that's going to be really great. So don't think of it just about cutting back. It's about being in control of your money, being in control of your finances, and actually connecting to it. And for me, those numbers are really going to have quite a powerful impact on how your life is going to be conducted. Now, once you've done it though, don't just abandon it. Revisit that, come back to it every month, perhaps. I wouldn't literally do it on a micromanaging every 5 minutes, but come back to it every month, every couple of weeks, update it and see, does anything change there as well? And what that will find you'll do, as long as you don't become over the top, always talking about money, it will just give you a much more comfortable here where you're looking at your bank statements, where you're looking at your credit cards, you're checking what you're spending, you're controlling it, and hopefully you're giving yourself a bit more liberation, a bit more freedom, and lessen the anxiety of what's going on. Folks, I hope that's made some degree of sense. Before I sort of wrap up, a couple of things. If you want to have a copy of that Google Sheet doc that I shared with you, please by all means put some comments on there. There is a guide on personal budgeting, so if you watch out for my blog video that we published on Monday, there'll be a copy there. If you want a copy, by all means let me know. And what I'm going to share with you is, I suppose, just a bit of a promo here. Let me show you this here. I'm going to be quite shameless in this. Let's share that screen. Now, the show and the business is called I Hate Numbers. Now, I'll just let you know, I don't hate numbers. I think they're superb. I think they're a great way to give us control over our lives in personal and business. My focus is obviously using numbers in a business environment, but when we are business owners, we do have families, we do have responsibilities, we have lives hopefully outside of business here. So those numbers transfer into a personal life. So for me, I don't divorce them, I look at the two together. I love numbers. I think they give you great power, great liberation. It's a great way to tell the story of your business, of your life, and it just gives you that clarity, lessens the anxiety, and all those weird and wonderful things. And obviously, from a business point of view, it's a great way to actually make more money, save tax and time, and improve your financial well-being as well. So check out the I Hate Numbers. In terms of, there's the little ditty coming across the bottom of the screen. The book's coming out next week. Hopefully, dive in there. There's a free introduction in. Have a read of it. If you like it, you like the flavour of it, the taste of it, I'd love it if you could order a copy and help spread the word. Folks, until next week, have a fantastic week and good luck with your personal planning, your personal budgeting. Let's do that.